The Arizona Cardinals are back in action on Saturday night against the Green Bay Packers, and right here in studio, in person, is the first ever female coach in the National Football League, as Bruce Arians hired our guest to be an assistant coaching intern for the training camp and the preseason. Jen Welter here on the Rich Eisen Show. Good to see you.
Hey, so great to be here, Rich.
So what do you think of the Arizona Cardinals' chances coming up this weekend against the Green Bay Packers, based on the matchups that you know that are going to be out there on the field?
You know, I think that the last time they faced the Green Bay Packers, they had 9 sacks, 8 of which against Aaron Rodgers, and it was better to take him and save him in playoffs than to leave him in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I like the matchup for the Cardinals. It's the one I wanted to see coming down the pike. Obviously, Green Bay is going to come with a different intensity. It's playoffs. You can't expect to have 9 sacks again, but
right.
I think it's in the Cardinals' favor.
Now, when when you coached them, you were on defense,
Mm-hmm.
but you, as a player yourself, as a rock toter, a running back.
Well, most of my career was on defense.
Right, on defense, right.
Yes.
But you have played in your career running back. David Johnson, where did this young man come from, essentially? Where do you think of his suddenly in the forefront of this team right now?
You know, and we all saw it. Like, you just see, like, those things in training camp when you're there. And I loved it at the time when he looked at me, and it was in one of the games, and he looked at me and he goes, "Coach, did I shake too much?" I said, "Absolutely. Get out of the backfield." Because as a defense, we're trying to close down the pocket. You don't have time to shake. And he said, "So shake him in open space?" I said, "Yes, but run through him in the pocket." And he's like, "I got you."
How did you find these guys taking coaching from you?
Absolutely fantastic. You know, when I walked in, first of all, you come in with Bruce Arians, one of the most respected coaches in football. They all knew if Bruce is going to bring somebody in, it's legit. And second of all, thankfully, I had street cred. They had all watched my game film.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. They'd come up to me and they'd be like, "Man, Coach, you were a beast off the edge. Like, are you going to bring those pass rush skills?" And they all wanted to know. You know, they were very proud to say, "Man, Coach, this is history. Like, we're a part of history." And, you know, I was very careful not to try and go out and over-talk anybody.
Sure.
I just, you know, I had the pleasure of working with Larry Foote, one of the greatest linebackers in the game, and he knows the playbook so well, and he sees the system because he played in it. And so I would just take my moments, and it'd be like if I saw something in your game, like maybe small, like, "Hey, if you just come a little bit more to the outside, like you're a smaller guy, you can't big body everybody, dip and rip your shoulder a little bit, you'll be, you know, you would have had that sack." And they'd be like, "All right." And then when it would work, they'd come back and they'd be like, "Man, Coach, that worked. What else you got?"
So they saw your film from the Texas Revolution, essentially, from those couple of seasons, or from the Women's World Championship.
Yeah,
where
they
you won
saw
the
more of the
gold.
women's film because that's when you really got to see me as a player and who I was in my element, which was a linebacker. And, you know, they'd watch the edge and they knew all about me. You know, they knew I played for the Revolution. They knew, you know, that I had played overseas and all this stuff. And they were the sweetest, biggest, most giant, toughest kids you've ever met because they were so excited.
So when did you first start playing football? When did that first hit you? Is like, I'd like to try it, and how did you get that opportunity?
I grew up in Vero Beach, Florida, where, you know, football is like a religion. So I always loved it, but I never had an opportunity to play. Went to Boston College, played rugby. That was the closest thing I had ever seen. And then women's football was really starting right when I graduated from college. And I went to an open tryout, and I made it. And that was in, the beginning of a 14-year career.
So you went to an open tryout.
Yep.
And how were you received at an open tryout? How were you received?
You know, they loved it. I mean, it was women's football,
Sure.
and here was this grind, and they all thought I was too little. But then, thankfully, when we got into tackling and stuff, they were like, "Oh my gosh, this girl's legit."
Right. So then you could start hitting people and start running some people over, essentially.
I mean, I had played rugby, so I learned how to tackle
I love it.
with no pads and no helmet. You gave me pads and a helmet, and I didn't realize I was 5'2". I mean, I was fearless, and that was something I carried with me my whole career.
And so I'm here with Jen Welter here on the Rich Eisen Show. When did Bruce Arians first reach out to you? When did you first hear from Coach?
You know, it was after the NFL owners meeting when they had announced Sarah Thomas to be the first female ref.
Right.
And somebody asked Bruce, like, "Could you ever see a female coaching?" And he was like, "You know, Bruce," he was like, "Absolutely, why not? She's qualified, yes." And he had a college coach who was a receivers coach that, you know, it was one of the best. I think her name was Dot Murphy, he said, and she was one of the best coaches he'd been around. And that really had an imprint on him. And my coach for the Texas Revolution, Devin Wyman, when I told him about it, he was like, well, we should call Bruce. And I'm just looking at him like, are you crazy? Like, you don't just pick up the phone and call Bruce Arians.
Right.
And he actually asked me, could I get Bruce's number? And so I think rather than being his assistant coach, I ended up being his assistant that day because I ended up getting to Wes, Bruce's assistant, and he was like, oh, Bruce would definitely want to talk to you. Mm-hmm. And he called Devin back a few weeks later, and I guess they talked for about an hour. And then he invited me out to OTAs, and I came out one day, and he was just, he was asking me about football and psychology and all of these things. And then he finally said, at the end of it, he's like, I really want to make this happen. I don't know yet if I can, but I want you to know it's in my heart to try. And he said, if you're willing to step into this chaos with me, I think we can do something really special.
Then you stepped into the chaos.
I did.
I know through your Twitter feed that you really have a soft spot for Tyrann Mathieu and how he performs, how he comports himself, and how he plays. He's not, unfortunately, playing for this team. How big a loss do you think he is? That's what everybody's talking about. Is that this team, this defense, that what he could do? Certainly, say if Greg Olsen comes into his house, Richard Rodgers is coming into the house this week, and Aaron Rodgers constantly, certainly in the second half of the season, has been finding his tight end quite a bit. How big of a hole does that leave for Arizona?
Tyrann Mathieu is an X factor player. He is a player that you have to game plan for. You have to look as an offense. You have to say, find Tyrann Mathieu on any play because he may be sacking your quarterback or he may be making an interception. So to take him out of there makes it an easier picture to evaluate. However, he is far from not present on that team. Mm-hmm. The kind of guy that he is, Patrick Peterson said it, always the class act, another guy that I just absolutely love. He was like, we're going to play with the heart of a Badger. And I think when you have a team that's as tight as that team, and they know that, they're playing for the guys who have gotten hurt and aren't there anymore, your Alex Okafor, your Corey Redding, your Tyrann Mathieu, and they know that they're all playing to represent their brothers, which is how they look at it, you have a very, very deadly Arizona Cardinals team. I would never, ever, ever, as a coach, want to take Tyrann Mathieu out of a lineup. He's a player I would, if I, had a draft choice, he would be one of the tops because he is that guy. He brings up everybody around him. But knowing him the way I do, I guarantee he's still doing that with everybody. And so it hurts. I mean, I can't even express the difficulty of taking somebody out of it, like that wild card, that honey badger, that relentless guy that he is. But they're keeping him with him, I guarantee it.
So what are your future plans? What do you have on the Jen Welter horizon? Do you want to still keep coaching?
Yeah, I would love to. I think it was really great for everybody to see how the guys responded, because, of course, that was the biggest question. Would guys respond well to a woman in coaching? And as I like to say, we did the impossible and we did it well. Mm-hmm. So as long as that's a possibility, I'm going to pursue it. I have some opportunities. I'm going to go over to Australia and help the women's game coaching right after the Super Bowl for a week. Yeah, and so, there are some good things coming up.
Right. So, and you want to continue focusing on defense? Because, again, you do have some...
Oh, I'm much better on defense.
You're better on defense?
Oh, much better.
Okay. You're a better defender than you were
absolutely
a running back.
I played all of my women's career on defense except, basically like a blocker a lot of the times on offense. Okay. But that is where my heart is.
You're like Anthony Barr. Anthony Barr goes from... that's the thing I can't believe, that he would go from a running back to one of the top outside linebackers who's dropping in coverage. He's also putting his fingers in the dirt. He's been incredible. Yeah. And the Arizona Cardinals... Which team left in the NFC concerns you most? Since you said that Green Bay, I don't want to offend people in Wisconsin, and I'm sure you don't want to also.
Oh, no, absolutely. That is one of...
Because be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
But which team do you think concerns you the most for Arizona?
The Seahawks are tough, and so are the Panthers. I think the one advantage that we have is that they have to play each other. And I'm thankful for that because that's going to be an epic battle. And I think whoever has to face the winning team out of that, you might get a little bit lucky because they're going to take so much out of each other.
Right.
But I find them both pretty concerning. The last battle with the Seahawks and Cardinals, yes, it's a game where you're not playing for anything, but that's still a pride game. And I don't like what they did with the Cardinals because it was, my least favorite game for the Cardinals this season.
Sure. Jen Welter, thank you for coming on. Please come
Absolutely.
back. Let me know
Anytime.
whenever you're in town. We'll have you back on, certainly, and good luck down in Australia, and I look forward to seeing you back on an NFL sideline.
Yeah, me too.
You bet. Good to
All
see
right.
you. You bet. At
Thanks.
JWelter47 on Twitter. Jen Welter here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.